There's a lot of debate going on in the country right now because one of the presidential candidates, Bernie Sanders from Vermont, a senator from Vermont, is trying to become president, and he has socialist views, or he has socialist beliefs. And a lot of people in America, they are suspicious of socialism because they know that the Marxist regime, the Soviet Union, had something to do with socialism, and so they're afraid of socialism because they think it's something that's bad for the country. It's actually social. The form of human existence is always social, to some degree. You interact in a society to survive and to live. But socialism, when I talk about socialism, I go back to the conception of Karl Marx, and I try to define what he meant by socialism. And what he meant by socialism is that the society is not made by rich people so that only they can understand how it's put together. It's each person is educated to each aspect of the society so that they can make the form of their existence. In this he called socialism. That the revolution occurs, that the wealthy people are dispossessed of their wealth, but they're not dispossessed. In Marx's time, that took the form of a violent revolution. Today it might take the form of a lot of people who own a bunch of stuff saying, we're going to try to create an educational system that makes people more knowledgeable about how everything's put together. They can improve education, so that improves the minds of people, and that allows people to participate in a more social form of existence. There's things in our society that cause some people to not be as intensely participating socially as others. There's discrimination against poor people. There's hostility to different races of people. There is divisions among very wealthy people. I talked in one of my posts, or no, I didn't post that, but I was talking about somebody who works for De Beers Diamond Company, and he wears suits that are $50,000, because he can do that. But there's inequality then between that person and another person who can't do that. But a socialist society, that was for Marx, that was what the revolution was for. The revolution was the first part, and then the second part was rebuilding man so that man had not had to live in division from others. And so he has a more intensely social form of existence. But since Marx embraced technology, and I don't think we can reject it. I really don't. I mean, just think of some things like medical care that people need, and think of rejecting all of modern science, and with it all of medicine today and all the things. So we have to have specialties in our economy, whereas in Marx's time he thought everybody could be that specialist. Everybody could know almost everything else about a job. Now Marx had a practical dimension to that. He meant in any particular factory, the owners shouldn't know all about how everything works at the factories, and then the workers are just so lacking in knowledge that they can't do like every job. So people really in this country, you notice how much they respect it when they work at a place, and they know that, and they say the manager can do all the jobs. Like, they have a lot of respect for managers, I've noticed over the years, when they say the manager has done this job. The manager has done that job. The manager has done that job. And they have more respect. In most places, they will tell you if the manager hasn't done the job, they usually say he doesn't know anything about what we do, or she. They don't know anything about what we do, and they tell us what to do. And so Marx was really kind of saying, hey, commonsensically here, let's get everybody on the same page, make them actually have the same knowledge, and then their level of sociality increases. Because notice how when you take a class in college, you notice how your feeling is the teacher's the expert. I can't really talk to the teacher because the teacher's not my friend. The teacher's like this expert. And I had this belief for a long time, but Professor Gary Glenn of NIU, he got me out of that mode of thinking because somehow he seemed like my friend. You see, from the very beginning, he seemed like he was my friend as much as my teacher. And so it was just a feeling that I had. I think it was because he looked a little bit like my dad, and I had become the friend of my dad. And he came from the same farming community in Iowa, or near where my dad was, so I didn't have that feeling. And so for the first time, I got to experience the feeling where you're not looking at the teacher like, oh boy, he knows everything, or she knows everything, and I don't know anything. So I don't feel comfortable talking to them. See, Marx would say you've got to overcome that because that prevents socializing. And socializing allows you to exchange information and to understand each other better. And understanding each other is best for everybody. But today that's so hard because there's so many different aspects of society. There's so many different technical spheres. That De Beers diamond trader that I talked about, he knows things about his job that none of us here would know about. We could be taught to do that job, but we don't have that job. We have different kinds of jobs. Some of us aren't unemployed at present, but it's when you say socialism, when I say socialism, this is how I'm defining it so that nobody thinks I'm trying to slip something in that is radical, or it's not radical at all. It's like 20 people say we're going to own 4 houses in a 2, 4, 6, and an 8 block area. And there's going to be 4 houses, and then there's going to be a circle in the center where we watch plays and we watch TV together and we talk together and we learn together and we study together how we're going to have a garden out there. And we're going to build a garden together, and we're going to read, and we're going to study, and we're going to think, and we're going to do all those things together because that's good for us to socialize, see? Because it's better than being isolated. And so you'll get a lot of people today that are isolated like me, and they're preaching socialism, but they're not just preaching it because they're isolated. They're preaching it, in my case, I'm preaching it, if I'm preaching it at all, I'm just doing a YouTube video. If I'm preaching it at all, I'm preaching it because I think it's good for people to have a social aspect to their existence. Because I think it's bad when we have like a Ted Kaczynski in a society who is isolated. When we have a Charles Manson who gets isolated because of experiences he had when he was young. When we have isolation in society, we have more things to scare us. More crime, more division of the people, and so on. But the society is so large that it's not sensible to be able to practice socialism among 350 million people, as in America. It's sensible among 20 people. It's sensible maybe ultimately among 50 people, kind of on the model of this kind of society where everybody contributes. Today a lot of med school students and a lot of students in graduate school, they take out huge loans. So they get a large amount of money. So they'll have like $20,000 or $30,000 that if they just get together with like 5 other people and they say, I'm going to give $15,000 of my student loans, and they all put it together, then before they even become a doctor, they can own a house in community with other people, and they can build like a little community. It can be a community of doctors, that we're all becoming doctors together. Or it can be a community of graduate students, who are studying philosophy or something else. The one thing that I see that would be like a limitation on that today is that it cannot be revolutionary. You cannot be storing guns up and wanting to like take stuff from the people who own the society because you need that stuff. You need all the things that they sell, and you have no reason to oppose them. Like, you have no reason to oppose them unless you think, unless you're a group of people who thinks, hey, we want all that stuff for free. But why, you can't have all that stuff for free because you had to make that stuff. So it's not, that stuff is not free for the people who supply it to us. They have to make it. They have to have knowledge to make it. They have to know sciences to own. But it's a very complicated debate when you enter into discussions like, but some people have elevated themselves so high above others by their investments and the money they have that they no longer have to work. but other people do. And that's a complicated debate. I think today that that's not profitable to engage in that debate, because that's not something you likely can change. But whether you can have a social community that you form, that whatever it is, it's 10 girls who say, we're in grad school. We realized we could buy a house if we all contributed our money together, and we realized that we'd always need one. And so we purchased it with our student loan money, and then we built a form of existence together. And we do that, and we're dedicated to each other, and we don't let each other down, and we don't lie to each other, and we don't undermine each other. This is what I mean by socialism. That you all contribute with some idea beginning. It might be like lonely philosophers to get together, or it might be philosophers who aren't satisfied with the kind of discussions they're having with other people, who are thinking, I'd like to have, maybe it's like Tamar Gendler from Yale. She says, well, I don't have good philosophical discussion with anybody except my students, and I want my job to be a part of my social existence in addition to what I do. Like I want, like Nietzsche said, I didn't really have a good thought unless I was walking. And when I was walking, then I had good thoughts. So she's like, well, I'd like to be in communion with 6 or 7 other philosophers where we walk around and we talk about philosophical issues. Well, see, that's an idea, that if those philosophers, if there were 4 houses, that they own, they have private quarters now. Don't get the idea that socialism is some kind of slumber party where everybody gets to touch everybody, because some people won't like the other people erotically. Some people only want to be the friends of the other people. Some people will be there. Most people, though, will join by the requirement that they can contribute something to. They can be a cook. They can be a mechanic. They can do electrical wiring. They can build a home. They can maintain a swimming pool or something like that. Things like that. But it's working together, and it's socializing together, so you create your own little mini society within a larger society, with the idea that you're going to have the kind of, you're building, because you noticed that you like to have family support, you're building a community that provides you family support once you lose your family. My parents have deceased now, so I don't have my parents anymore. So it's sensible for me to think, hey, what about a commune with other people where that you adopt that as your family, and then you try to bolster each other's their self-sufficiency by building with them and agreeing with them to be part of their community and to help continue their form of life. Maybe you start, this would be a good idea for some people, maybe you start a little shelter for animals that have been mistreated. And that's part of that's outside where you have the commune and the few houses on the property, and then you all work for that not-for-profit organization. Or you join with 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 other people, and you set up a weed farm where you grow weed for medical marijuana purposes and you sell it. Whatever. It's something, you pick something that you can do together, and you can work together to continue your existence. And that is socialism as I conceive of it.